So, anybody who's ever heard me speak knows that I often talk about that in addition to meetings, we also need to make time in our day for staccato work and legato work. Staccato work is all the reactivity stuff, it's all the quick questions, calls, texts, little slack. It's the back and forth, that buzzy stuff. The legato work is the time to think. And the biggest complaint people have about, other than that they're in back-to-back meetings, one of the reasons that they hate being in back-to-back meetings is that there's no time to think in the workday. And we are paid as knowledge workers to think, and leaders are paid to think and strategize and delegate and drive new strategies. And if we want our people to take the time to think, we have to give them the opportunity to create the time to think. And that starts with us taking the time. So lots of people hear me talk about that, and it's not, it's not new news that you should block time for your legato work, block time for the thinking to drive the big projects forward, for the innovation, for the writing, the creativity, the analysis, the reading, the knowledge acquisition to think. We have to block the time. But lots of people block the time, but then they don't actually stick to it. That is what happens. So more and more people know I block the time, but I give it away. I give it away the minute somebody says I need that time for a meeting, the minute that their boss says, hey, do you have a minute? The minute that there's any other demand, the natural human impulse is to give up the legato time and say, well, I'll just do that on the weekend, or I'll do that later. And you put other people's needs first, is the way we think of it, and then we'll take care of ourselves later. But it's not their needs versus your needs. This is all the company's needs. The company needs you to spend the time thinking. And so here are some strategies that I have found really help us not just carve the time out, which a lot of people now are learning to do, but to stick to it. So here's 3 tips to stick to and use the legato time that you've blocked out for legato work, to drive the big thinking forward, to do the learning and the analysis and the creativity. How do you stick to it? Tip number 1, try to do it every day and at the same time every day. One of the biggest mistakes people make with their legato work is they're like, maybe it's every other day, or it's 2 days a week, and it's one day it's in the afternoon, another day it's in the morning. If the time you set aside for legato work is erratic, it's so hard to build a habit around it, right? The brain can't build the neural pathways to say, oh, it's this time, this is when I do my thinking. If sometimes it's Tuesday afternoon, and sometimes it's Thursday morning, and sometimes it's Friday between, at lunchtime. So pick the same time every day and protect it, right? Try to find the most logical time when your brain power is at its peak. For many people, that's the mornings. For some people, that's later in the day. When is my brain power and energy at its peak? And throw a net around that time. And that's number 1. Same time every day. Make sure you're blocking off enough time. So you have to think about your concentration threshold. Is it an hour? Is it 2 hours? What's the unit duration of time that you need to go deep enough in this kind of deep thinking to solve a problem and then tie it up in a bow before you come back to it the next day? So it's usually an hour or 2 for most people. It's something we can carve time out for reasonably and still be very available to our teams and our customers and clients the rest of the day. So same time, same amount, the right amount of time. And then here's tip number 3. Make sure that you decide by the end of the day before exactly what you're going to do in that legato time the next day. What piece of the project? What is your deliverable for that 1 or 2 hour block of time? If you wait until the legato time starts to decide what you're going to do, you're now using that time to decide what to do rather than to do what you have decided to implement. So, and it's too overwhelming, and we tend to just, let me just check my email or do something someone else needs because I don't really know what I should do here. And I'm losing, the 2 hours is slipping through my fingers. So just at the end of every day, you do your plan tomorrow plus 2. That's what I always talk about. And say, in my 2 hour legato time tomorrow, what concretely am I going to do? I'm going to pull the 3 previous reports and select which one is going to be my model. That's all I'm going to do in that 2 hours. I'm just going to pull, I'm going to assess, and I'm going to select. And maybe the next day, I'm going to read the selected model report, and I'm going to identify what aspects of the report I can use in the new report. And that's all I'm going to do. And the next day, you might start to build your basic PowerPoint for the new report. And then, and so on and so forth. So the idea of breaking the big project down into steps, completable steps, equal to the amount of time that you are going to spend. That is the third key to sticking to your Legato time. And the reason why is that when you have something very concrete that you can complete in that 2-hour Legato time, you have a very powerful point of comparison. When someone interrupts you or asks for 5 minutes, you can say, what do I do? Take this unexpected interruption in this moment, or complete this portion of my project. And it's in the absence of a concrete alternative, we will always take a distraction. But in the presence of a concrete alternative, we can make a really smart choice. That's how to stick to Legato time.